Hello, and welcome to the CLAYSTATION podcast. I'm your host, Sean Jackson, and here today we have a very unique guest artist. We have Susannah Paterson on the show. She's not just a potter, but she's also a painter and potter. She's Scottish Australian, and also she comes from a background of psychotherapy. So it is a very unique and interesting perspective into the ceramics and fine arts realm. Very welcome to the show, Susannah Paterson. Susannah, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
That's okay.
Yeah,
That's okay. It's lovely, and I do appreciate you giving your time to join the show today. And it's great to meet you and have a chat. Please don't stress. Don't worry.
a little bit nervous.
That's okay. That's okay. You have a lovely room behind you. Is that part of your
Oh,
studio storage?
no, no. This is the basement of the house. I had to shut all the doors because we've got a few dogs, and I had to kind of hide myself down here. So I'm not actually in my studio because it would have been too disruptive with barking and things. So I'm hiding downstairs in my little office downstairs.
That's awesome. Well, it's good to see you. The connection seems to be good at this moment.
Yeah,
I
it's
do
good. I can hear you.
I do hope my audio is okay. As with a couple of weeks ago, we had an issue with our sound, as I have a maintenance crew outside the wall I'm next to at the moment. So hopefully that they will turn it down a little bit later.
Yeah.
Okay, so your background comes originally from your profile online. You've mentioned that you come from a background in as a psychotherapist. So first, let's go
I
into that.
do. Okay, into that. Yeah, I've been a psychotherapist. I'm literally about to retire in a month's time, and I've been a psychotherapist for 30 years. And that's a long time. So I'm really looking forward to retiring. How can I say? Uh, I got into it slightly the way that many people get into it. I went to counseling when I was in my early 20s. I had a disastrous relationship and with somebody, I can't even remember who now, but anyway, I ended up going to see a psychotherapist. And I sat there, and I think for the first time in my life, somebody listened to me. And the experience was pretty powerful. Um, then I started, the more I went, the more I thought, oh, I quite like this job. I think I could do this. It took me a little while to get into it. At the time, I was actually working in the music industry. Um, so I've had a bit of, I don't think I say much about that on my thing, but I did have 10 years of working for rock concert promoters all over, both here in Australia and in Scotland mainly. Um, but I knew I had to get out of that, and I was looking for a way out of that. And well, the healing game seemed to be drawing me and calling me, so I started actually started studying as a shiatsu therapist first, and body work I was always interested in me, and I sort of followed the things that worked for me, which is what people do, I guess, you know. And then while I was busy sort of being a shiatsu therapist, people were um, having catharsis on my futon mat, and I thought, oh God, I think I better learn how to deal with this a bit better. And so I started counselling training, and I didn't really look back. Like most of my life, which includes my artistic life, I've not followed the the prescribed path at all. Um, I reflect on that sometimes, but I started out as a drug and alcohol counselor because I also had developed my own addiction in the music industry, which is why I basically knew I had to get out of it or die. And I knew it was time to pull my life together in that way. And so drug and alcohol was quite an obvious place for me to start as I sort of got into my own recovery. And gosh, it's such a long time ago. I'm trying to, you probably don't want the whole story about my therapy. But anyway, one thing led to another. I did various bits of paper trainings, diplomas in different kinds of psychotherapy. I was a client for a long time. To the year 2000, when I finished a Master's of Critical Psychology at UWS, I decided I'd had enough of academia. And I'd sort of proved to myself and the world that I actually did have a brain. And so I don't know, I wanted to do something for me. And a friend of mine said, oh, I go to this art class. Do you want to come? And I went, oh, yeah, yes, I think I do. Because like many people, I loved art as a child. And, I painted and drew. Never did pottery as a child, actually, or a young person. But I did draw and paint a lot. And of course I dropped it, because of work and life and earning money and things like that. And so when she said, do you want to come to this art class, I said, oh yeah, I'd love to. And I can honestly say that first class with a teacher called Sarah Aylward just blew me away and blew my, like I suddenly went, oh my God, this is what I want to do, just on class one. And I haven't looked back since then in terms of painting. I've now been seriously painting, for 20 odd years. And I, in that time, went to art school and, done billions of workshops and with various interesting people. And so that's, and concurrently, I carried on doing my therapy practice. Quite difficult, really. They're all quite intense things. I find painting very intense. Psychotherapy is certainly very intense. But when I was at, I did a diploma of visual arts at TAFE, Brookvale, which is where, of course, I now go to open studio 2 days a week, and I love, for ceramics. And part of that, I think it was in year 2, we had to do a year of ceramics. And I thought, oh God, how boring will that be? All I wanted to do was to paint. And I kind of went reluctantly along to that first class with Sally James. And I had the same experience as I did when I picked up a brush. I just started touching clay and I felt something come alive. I couldn't believe how brilliant this thing was. And I just loved it. And I fell in love with ceramics. So then I had like 3, actually. One of my last solo show was called 3 Points of Attention, because I had these 3, what I call these 3 spinning plates, where I'm trying to paint and draw and do all that. I'm trying to do my ceramics, and I was running a therapy practice, which, so I sort of felt I had to I was pulled in these 3 different directions, or just sort of holding that balance there for quite a few years. Over that time, I sort of realized deeper and deeper and more that the 3 practices are so intricately connected, and that therapy is not just a set of techniques that you learn at counseling school or at university, but it's a complete art. And the art of being with somebody and really deeply listening is very similar to the art of painting, for me anyway, and just really listening deeply to the painting and feeling it. And the same with clay, although I tend to think of clay as more playful for me and a very nice antidote to the intensity of painting, and certainly the intensity of psychotherapy. Clay is where I feel like my inner child, gets to come out, and hence I make all these kind of wacky doggerels, and I just do stuff that's very playful, and I often feel that I'm not very serious at all. Having said that,
I do want to ask you a little bit later about these
yeah,
doggerels and to explain them a
okay,
bit
all
more
right,
later. But
bit more later.
I do
So
I do like that
yeah,
point that you mentioned about how um what was it that you just said? You mentioned about how uh oh, what was I just drew a blank again. You're saying
Mont
about
Blanc. All right.
you're saying
The learning to deeply listen. You mean not just
yeah,
to
the
the
part
person,
of
but also
listening.
to your art. Yes,
Because you're saying
yes.
that your background in psychotherapy,
Psychotherapy.
and
Yeah,
that, yeah, you're listening, and then you're analyzing, and then you're processing and trying to make an understanding and seeing, you know, which way to guide or direct it. And you're saying you found that same in the medium of painting,
yes,
and myself, and I'm sure many other ceramicists would agree that there's that key point of learning to listen to ceramics, to learning to listen to the clay,
yes,
and trying to understand what that clay wants to be or how you can guide it, because
yes,
you might have an image in your head exactly of what you want it to be, but of what it
yeah,
wants to be, you can only
yeah,
guide that to a certain degree.
yes,
And yeah, I definitely agree with you 100% on that one.
yeah,
And
yeah.
also, your background in
Psychotherapy. Yeah,
psychotherapy is very important actually in Australia, because Australia has a very a lot of problems with mental
huge.
illnesses, and a lot of trauma within families and that sort of stuff. So that
Yes,
level of research and also studies and work industry is very important in Australia's um, society, and it's something that
yeah.
shouldn't be ignored. That's why there's a lot of issues of, not issues,
Well, there are.
promotion. Yeah, there are definitely.
They
uh,
are issues.
there are a lot of events that promote awareness, like the Mental Awareness Week and Mental
Yeah.
Awareness Festivals. I think there's also I know in Sydney there's a one huge festival, right, that deals with mental awareness.
Yes, there are mental health. There's the mental. I don't really know. Do you know? I'm not really. I say I'm not really attuned to it. That's not true. I'm less so now that I'm moving towards retirement. Um, what's interesting to me, and this is nothing to do with ceramics or art, but is to do with mental health, is that um, the lack of awareness of what's available here and the political situation between the psychiatrists, the psychologists, and the people like myself who never get mentioned. I mean, there's an army of counselors and psychotherapists like myself who are highly, highly trained. Most of us will have master's degrees. We have done massive work with training with for myself with people from all over the world, in America in particular, because there's some wonderful trainers and therapists over there, and I don't get recognized by the government here at all because I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Go
Interesting.
figure. And it's political, so we won't go into it now, but it is about I took the APS, that's the Psychologists Association, 25 years to get Medicare for their clients. And I won't go on about it too much because it's got nothing to do with ceramics, except that it's frustrating because there are people like myself and many, many people like me who operate. We're perfectly qualified. We have public liability. We belong to organizations that regulate us, but we never get mentioned. And it's really, really interesting. And so people think that they only have one choice, is to go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and they don't understand the difference.
Mm.
And the psychology training in this country is quite narrow, which is why a lot of my psychologist friends, who as soon as they've qualified as psychologists, go on and do psychotherapy training because they don't get that training at university.
I wasn't even aware of that. Yeah,
No,
the only
nobody is. Very
issues,
few people are. It's
just
really,
like many other people, many other Australians are, in the past, you have issues that you go with, and when you go to see your GP or doctor, and then they either
yeah,
send you to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. There's
That's
only
right.
two options, and
That's exactly
yeah,
right. Yes, but there is a third option for all those listening, and there's people like me, and
yeah,
you can find people like me through PACFA, which is the Psychotherapists and Counsellors Federation of Australia, and they thoroughly regulate, and you can't just join PACFA, no, you know, because the old excuse used to be, oh well, anyone can be a counsellor. That's a very, very old excuse now. Now you can't. You've got to be properly trained, and you've got to keep up your professional development, and all of those things. It's, you know, so there we
now
are. So
you say
it's
this
quite a
is
contentious
you're saying
field.
now that this is very unrelated to this topic, but in my opinion, it's very related because
Ah,
this is your background. This is where you've been guided throughout your whole professional career. What's led you to your art streams now, and then a lot
yeah,
of your art, from what I understand, has got a lot to do with surrealism. You've
yes,
described as the in your online portfolio, you describe it as a medium of being the surreal and the unconscious. So your background,
yeah,
your professional background, deeply impacts your artwork. So
yes, all the
don't
time.
be shy to talk about it at all.
Oh, well, I was just talking about the political situation of mental health in Australia.
Oh,
But
politics always affects our mental, so
yeah,
don't worry.
it is. It is very frustrating to me, and you know, I just, yeah. Anyway, because people would come to me and they'd go, "Gosh, you know, you're the first person I've been able to cry with," or, you know, "I can't believe how I feel listened to," because the psychiatrist I went to see ran 2 hours late and spent 10 minutes with me and gave me a prescription. You know, and that's not what
Mm,
most people want. You know, most people want to be listened to and related to, and that's what heals. I mean, I'm still very interested in what heals people, and you know, including myself. I mean, that was why I got into therapy, and art has been hugely healing for me
mm.
and challenges me to grow it. Yeah, you know, so I'm still on that I need to be healed journey, you know. You know, and yeah, there's lots of sort of vulnerable spots in art that will, you know, kind of poke you and still hurt, you know. So I look at it as like, the next stage in healing is art for me. You know, I use the word art very broadly, from painting or pots, ceramics too, obviously. Yeah.
Back before you started your your first career, growing up,
Yeah.
did you grow up in Australia? Which area did you
No,
grow up?
no, no. I was born into a farming family in the Highlands of Scotland, way north of Inverness, and so a very rural upbringing. But at the age of 7, well, actually at the age of 6, my parents got divorced, and I was sent to live with another family, but my brothers were too. A family who I'm still terribly close to. But then by the time I was 8, 9, I was sent to boarding school. So I was sent to boarding school in the south of England, and my home was in the very north of Scotland. And that's where I sort of lived. My mother lived in London, and she was quite a bohemian character, and she ended up remarrying to a jazz pianist. So my childhood was had this extraordinary sort of dichotomy, really, of hanging out with her very inappropriately a lot of times as a child, and as a teenager in London in the swinging 60s and 70s, to going back to my rather sort of middle class, sort of Victoriana family in the north of Scotland, where, you know, children were seen and not heard. And, you know, as a young woman, I certainly wasn't allowed much of a voice, you know.
Mm,
So it was a kind of strange and turbulent childhood, very much so. Probably another reason I ended up being a therapist is to sort of try and heal My mother was an alcoholic and she died of alcoholism when I was 30. My father has died about 14 years ago, and I can honestly say he was probably an alcoholic too. I think I can say that publicly. Everyone knew differently though. And you know, childhood and teenage, yeah, it was quite a difficult one for me, full of quite a lot of trauma and sort of unpleasant things.
I'm not aware of all the details of Scotland, but I have heard that there's quite a strong contemporary ceramics scene over in those areas as well.
There is.
Are you still connected to the communities
Uh,
over there?
Yeah, strangely enough, oh yes, very much so. I mean, I still have a lot of family over there, and I go, and some of my friends, actually some friends, local friends, have a quite a famous pottery called Anta, which they make tartan pottery, and there's another local pottery in my near where I was born and where my cousins live, and I go and stay, that called Tain pottery. There's been a burgeoning. There's a lot of lovely potters up there, and whenever I go back, I sort of want to go and explore them some more. But I haven't been back. I was supposed to go back last year, and I had all these things. There's one called Mud Pottery, Mudness, up in the very north of Scotland, and I want to go and visit her. Anyway, didn't get back because of COVID, so it's on the list. But the Scotland is stuffed with painters and potters of immense, wonderful, yeah. I go and look at a lot of stuff when I'm traveling, actually, more so than when I'm here. It's interesting, yeah. So
Growing up in Scotland, do you feel that you were influenced at a young age in the art scene, or did you have some sort of connection to any artistic or
well,
crafts people
yeah,
in your family, maybe?
well, yes and no. On my mother's side of the family, my great grandfather was a moderately successful Scottish impressionist. And I always used to hope that I'd end up, I didn't know him, he died before I was born, but I have three of his paintings, and my brothers both have three. So in the family, we've got about 9 of his paintings, and I keep my eyes out for them whenever they come up. So there was that. On the other side, no, we farming family. I mean, I desperately wanted to go to art school, but it was totally, out of the question. It was way too wild and zany and weird for my father to even consider. And, I had to go and do something really sort of, sensible, like secretarial work, which I absolutely hated with a passion. I was such a lousy secretary. The only place I could really find to keep me and stay was in the music industry, where I kind of some of my eccentricities were probably tolerated a bit better, which is really, the only way I made use of secretarial training, I think. No, my family, my Scottish family, I mean, they liked art, and, there was plenty of art about. We had artists that would come and stay, and I would, in fact, I grew up actually with my aunt and uncle. That's another long story, but and they had several artist friends, and all my cousins had their portraits painted, and I would sit and watch the portrait painter, who was a chap called John Walton, who's quite a lot of his work is in the National Portrait Gallery in London. And John would come up, and I'd sit and watch how he painted my cousins, and I would sort of think, gosh, I wish someone would paint me. But then I also think, I wish I could paint someone. I think that was probably the first, kind of thing. And at school, at boarding school, I had the most wonderful art teacher called Mrs. Andrews. And I think I was a ball of anxiety as a child. But the one place that my refuge was the art room. And I'm always eternally grateful to her, because I would sneak in there when I wasn't supposed to. And she would know, but she just used to kind of pat me and sort of shut the door, as I was left with all the paints and things. And I don't think anyone really knew I was in there, but she did. Yeah. And I loved it, because she didn't sort of tell me I should be somewhere else. So, which I should have been probably. But So no, my mother was very arty, but she married a jazz pianist. But she did take me to a lot of exhibitions in London as a child. So, and as a young person, she would be dragging me off to various exhibitions and things.
Do you feel you were influenced from that jazz side? Because the jazz, I
Yes,
don't know deeply much about jazz, but from what I'm aware of it, it has both artistic mediums to it and also that surrealist
yeah,
mental state linked
yeah,
to it as well. So,
yes.
so you feel, yeah?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, when she married, my stepfather's name was Keith Sawbridge, and he was a sort of musician's musician. And when she married him, I said, "Oh, I hate jazz, Mummy. I hate jazz." And she said, "Well, you don't know anything about it." And it's true. I think I was 13. I didn't know much about it. And she did proceed to educate me in jazz, and I honestly snuck me into the Oscar Peterson um, gig at Ronnie Scott's when I was 15, I think. And I saw, my stepfather was a friend of Spike Milligan's as well, and Larry Adler. So I kind of got to, I'm name dropping, but only to sort of say that gave me a different view. And I don't mean to name drop for any other reason. It's say, yeah, they were quite well connected into the jazz world, and it did expose me to a lot of music, and at quite a young age, and a lot of other things too, which I probably shouldn't have been exposed to. So, um, yeah, all grist for the mill. But then I had this other very straight side to the other side of my family. So I had this kind of very split existence, which was quite strange.
Now uh, starting your start in painting.
Yes.
Where did that begin from?
Well, that other than school and then dropping it, and was in the year, I remember distinctly, it was the year 2000. I just graduated from UWS with my master's in critical psychology, and
That's the University of Western Sydney in
yeah,
Australia. Yep.
yeah. They used to run an amazing course called Critical Perspectives of Psychological Practice.
Hmm.
Absolute mouthful to say, but it basically made you look at what all the beliefs that underpin the way that we do psychology therapy. What are they all? And suffice to say, it was probably the beginning of me wanting to give up therapy when I realized how many kind of really, male, patriarchal, white, middle-aged beliefs kind of, cemented into the way we do it. Anyhow, it was a fabulous degree. But after that, I needed something else. And yes, my first art teacher was Sarah Aylward. I believe she still teaches at the Workshop Art Centre in Willoughby. And she was pretty wild and wacky as well. So that suited me down to the ground. I sort of went to various other art teachers over the next few years until I met Sarah Mufford there, who encouraged me to go to TAFE, which I did. And that was where I got first introduced to ceramics. And then I have to say that I dropped out of the diploma towards the end because I really hated the system. And I found that I wasn't enjoying it at all. I hated digital art. I still do. I don't mind looking at it. I just don't want to do it.
Now that's
And
ironic because you're actually in a digital gallery.
I know. What you mean, Blue Thumb or White
Yes,
Thumb?
yes, yes.
Oh well, that's you. You don't have any choice if you want to get known these days. You have to be somewhere. You have to be online, and it's one of the ways that you sell work. Um, so yes, I've had to get my head around it a bit, but back then in 2007, I hated it.
Mm.
And I loved sculpture, and I loved ceramics, and I loved drawing, and I loved painting, but the rest of it, and I loved the art history too. So I don't know. I wasn't enjoying it. I had a particularly difficult drawing teacher as well, and at the time, who was very perfectionistic and wanted me to grid everything up, and I hated doing all that. So one day I just went, you know what, I'm really hating this, and I don't need another piece of paper. I think I want to be mentored instead. And I'll cut a long story short, I ended up finding the artist Kerry Lester, and who sadly died about 4 years ago. And I ended up painting with her for about 5 years. And she was quite a fierce teacher, but somehow managed to help me reconnect with the joy of painting and freeing me up again, you know. So that yeah. And then I also went I went back to do some ceramics at TAFE, but once again I found that the TAFE system quite stifling. And because I was running a practice, a psychotherapy practice as well, I found myself just not wanting to sit at my computer at night and at weekends doing assignments for people. I'd had enough of that. And so I dropped out of that, but I went to the Workshop Art Center and I started learning how to use the wheel with a Korean potter called Kwirak Chung, who Eric Kwirak's he's Korean, and he's been teaching at the Workshop Art Center, and I think at the National Art School he does quite a bit, or used to. And I spent 5 years with Kwirak learning how to throw, and anything else really. Kind of interesting teacher, very Korean, very quite hardcore. And then I felt like I'd outgrown that, and I rang my friend Kathy, who is I'm still at Open Studio with Cara, and I said, do you think I can come back? And she said, oh, yes. So I called Chris James and said, can I come to Open Studio? And he said yes. So there I have been for the last 4 years. That's a hell of a lot in a very short time, I've just told you. But that's kind of my trajectory. And every now and again I think, oh God, I really should have gone to the National Art School, and maybe I will, maybe I'll go, and then I remember that I don't really want to do all the assignments at the weekends and evenings. Having spent so many years of my life doing that as a psychotherapist, I just, for me, art, I'm a bit selfish about my art. It's for me, and it's got to be joyful, and it's got to be nourishing. And the moment I start to think that I'm creating and doing stuff for somebody else, I don't know, the joy goes out of it for me. And when I say for somebody else, I mean like an assignment, really, or some box ticking exercise. I can't bear it. I just go, oh. And maybe I cut my nose off to spite my face a little bit that way, but I enjoy the learning process for myself, discovering for myself. I don't want to be kind of prescriptively taught. So that's why Kerry was so good for me. She was pretty wild, and sort of kind of let me go down the paths I wanted to go down.
Yeah, well, being in the a lot of different fields, I'm sure you're already well aware that a lot of people have different learning patterns and learning processes to go through, yes. And some learning patterns are actually quite harmful to others with an opposite type of learning pattern. So at least you're aware of that, and you're finding your own way to develop it, which is really good actually. It's not spitting on it at all. Yeah.
No, I get a bit frustrated with my lack of knowledge with glazing, so.
That's okay. It's not for everyone. Like the great thing about the arts industries, and also within ceramics industries as well, there's so many different directions to go down towards, and you can't do them all. It's impossible to do them all. And that's that's what we love about art, because as we develop, we're spending our whole lives learning about something, and then there'll always be stuff pop up that we that we would love to learn, or we try
Yes.
to work down towards developing an understanding of, and then eventually down the road there'll be another path that will pop up that'll spark our interest, and whether we've got time to research
Yeah.
or develop that within our own pursuit, that's another question, because we eventually run out of
Yeah.
time. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's a great thing. Glazing and all the technical stuff, it's not for everyone, and then there's different fields. There's
Yeah.
amazing. It's
Yeah,
amazing what
I
you're doing.
enjoy it. I'm just frustrated with my own lack of knowledge. I sort of make these beautiful, but I think they're quite beautiful bowls, or I'm really good at throwing these days, and I can pretty much make anything I want. But then it gets, comes out of the bisque looking fabulous, and I go, yep, right, okay, and then I ruin it, damn, some silly idea about glazing, or I don't know. It's just that's my area of struggle right now,
Mm.
is the how to be a better glazer.
Well, if you make
Yeah.
friends with those who are into that sort of thing, then you don't have to struggle.
Yes. I know. Luckily at TAFE, at Open Studio, we have some wonderful other potters, and a positive, pot of gold in terms of knowledge and expertise, and everybody's so helpful and happy to help. It's a fabulous place to be, actually. Very good for me, and luckily it's just down the road too. Yeah.
No, I'm still learning. I don't know all the details about the different Sydney TAFEs, because I did ceramics in TAFE up in Brisbane a long time ago,
Oh,
and in Sydney, because I went to university in Sydney, but the different TAFEs, I know there's a Hornsby TAFE has got a great ceramics program.
yes.
I've heard about the Brookvale TAFE.
Brookvale, that's where I am. Yeah.
And there's also in the Sutherland Shire, there's the Guymere's TAFE has
Yeah.
got really good programs.
Yeah.
Now the Northern Beaches TAFE, is that the Brookvale TAFE, or is there two
Yes.
different TAFEs?
No, that's the Brookvale TAFE.
Okay,
Northern
so
Beach
I get a
TAFE.
bit confused about the exact location,
Yeah.
the title and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. It's
But
it's
yeah.
in Brookvale.
Okay, so for those listening, the Northern Beaches TAFE is the Brookvale TAFE, and you got to get there soon.
Yes. Yeah. And it's a fabulous place.
Yeah, I've heard a
Yeah.
lot of awesome people coming out of there, and for those listening, we actually me and Susannah connected through other artists that
Yeah.
come from there as well. So it's sounds like an awesome community.
Yeah.
Do you know where I'm located, Susannah?
You're on the Central Coast, aren't you?
Yes, yes.
Yay.
I moved up to Gosford, which is about an hour to an hour and a half north of Sydney. So
Yes.
I'm not that far from you. I'm just up
You're not
just a
that
little bit
far.
more.
You could come and visit us sometime.
Oh yes, yes, I'll be down once I get my financials back in order. But
Oh,
I
yeah.
think
Same to you.
Corona knocked everyone around quite a fair bit.
Oh, didn't it? Yes.
Talking about that, actually, how has it affected your practice? Because some people it hasn't actually affected at all,
Well,
or made better. But how's it affected you?
actually, well, apart from the fact that I had to can my solo show that I was going to have last year, which would have been my third solo show, and obviously didn't happen, couldn't happen. So that was a disappointment. But the upside of it was that because I have my studio is fabulous at home, and I was able to just immerse myself like a lot of artists. I work a lot by myself anyway, and so it really, I don't feel like I suffered very much. And strangely enough, go figure, I sold a lot of work in that time. I think I sold quite a few paintings, and yeah, I sold a lot of paintings, and I had a big open studio event, which I did with Rosalind Lowe, who lives nearby, and she came and did it with me. She's another of the Brookvale Potters, and her speciality is ash glazes, and Ros and I have done a few things together. So she came up when we had this pre-Christmas COVID safe event, in my studio, which we could open the doors. So it was all sort of semi-open air. It was very good. And that was great. So between us, we did pretty well, you know. I've noticed it slowing down a bit just now, but then that could also be the time of year. I'm hoping we don't go into another lockdown, but I think artists are lucky. You know, we're lucky people in that way, because you know, I think when you've got the creativity, you just sort of, that's what you do. You just put yourself into it, and, you know,
Well,
it's making time.
well, it's good to hear that it hasn't affected you too badly. I'm not sure how things are there at the moment, but here on the Central Coast, we've been. I don't know if it's a lockdown, but our restrictions have gone back up from last
Ours have
week. The
too.
masks have been brought back out everywhere, and
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, ours have too. So, you know, if you go into Woolies or something, you have to wear a mask, or if you go in anywhere indoors. And yeah, you know, yeah, we're just it's precautionary. But I think we have been incredibly lucky here. We've been so lucky, and a combination of good luck and good management, I think. And but we're also vulnerable, you know, it could go at any time. So, you know, I'm just aware of that. So yeah.
Oh, it's good. It's good to be aware of situations. I know I'm always getting out of contact of what the rules and regulations are everywhere. You know, as potters, we tend to hermit ourselves from the rest of
Yeah,
society.
yeah, we do. Yeah, yeah.
Now, at one point, I was actually talking to a ceramics buddy earlier today, and I mentioned about, you know, today I'm having a chat with this artist, and she works both in painting and as a potter, and they were interested. We started discussing, you know, we wanted to bring up the subject about you know, the painter versus the potter, and it's sort of been a bit an argument in the past because
Mhm.
it has a bit of a, I guess, a high contrast between the two, because one is like you have a medium where the emphasis is on detail and composition, and the other medium where one has to think about the composition and its limitations of the medium that it's in. Also having to think about the beginning to the end of the process and of what it will do during that process. So it's quite a strong contrast between those two mediums. How do you
Yes.
find those yourself? Like, so far, you have mentioned that your primary focus is on the painting, and you're a bit more serious on that, and then you sort of compartmentalize ceramics as more of your happy place to go to. How do you
Yeah.
find that yourself?
Um, well, that's true. Except that over the years, increasingly what my aim has been is to combine, is to have one bounce off the other.
Mm.
So one of the ways that I'm doing that is to learn how to throw very big plates, which I did with the lovely Cameron Williams, who I've done a couple of great workshops with, and I just, you know, I've concentrated on being able to throw big plates, which I can now do, and using those plates as a canvas. So then I paint while they're still green. I will take elements of my paintings, usually out of a painting. I'll take elements of that and put it on the plate. The struggle I have is that underglazes don't behave in the same way as oil paints.
Yes.
It's immensely frustrating to me, but I'm, you know, I'm getting better at it, and it's taken quite a long time to work out what works and what doesn't, like all these things. I don't know if this is answering your question, but it is a goal of mine to integrate the two more and more.
Mm.
Um, I've recently done, and I'm continuing to do, a body of work around the Pictish dog. So okay, it's going to connect in a second. So in my paintings, I often put a dog into my painting. Dogs are a very big feature of my life, partly because I'm married to somebody who earns his living through dogs, through training and walking them. We have dogs. I've always had dogs. I've always felt very, very connected to dogs all through my life. And I consider them a little bit of a, what I call a daemon, like an animal companion and something quite spiritual for me.
Mm.
So the dogs have appeared in my paintings. Just they just have to be there. I can't really tell you why. They just are, and maybe I could tell you why, but they're sort of, they're not really a dog. You know, people call me a dog painter, for example, or oh, she makes these dogs. But I can't. What I try to convey to people is that, yeah, they're not really dogs in terms of I'm making a cheesy dog, what I call a cheesy dog, or a dog portrait, or it's more the spiritual energy of the animal, of this animal that I'm trying to articulate, or the animal's species. So you said earlier, I'll ask you about the dogimals. Came, and I call them dogimals, which is a totally invented name, because if you look at them, they're not really dogs. They're dog-like. And often people say, oh, I love your pigs. And I'm going, yeah, actually, they're not pigs either. But that's okay. I get why they say that. But if I say, have a closer look, because a pig doesn't have a tail like that, you know, to start with. And so the kind of ambiguous animals that I happen to call dogimals, because they came from, I was staying with my brother, one of my brothers in upstate New York. I have two brothers who both live in America, and I used to, before COVID, go there quite a lot. And the place that he lives in upstate New York, you can hear the coyotes calling at night, and I love it. And one night I was lying in bed and I was listening to these coyotes, and I thought, wow, you know, I wonder what dogs and animals really, really think of us humans. You know, like what would they be saying? And kind of a sad thought that came to me is that they were howling for the world. And so I made these animals. I was actually at art school. I must have been in about 2007. So I made these kind of 3 howling animals out of clay, and I hand built them and used in coils. And I've still got those 3. And anyway, that was the beginning of them. And since then, I've you know, like I've wanted to include the animal energy in all my work. And it's multifaceted, but that's where I'm at. So these days, I've just done a series of paintings using the Pictish dog. Now, the Pictish dog is the Scottish. It's a tip of my hat to the Picts, were the ancient people who lived in Scotland, and they disappeared about 1,000 years ago. But what they left, nobody really knows much about them. They were a race of people who just probably got wiped out, partly by the Vikings coming from one side and the Celts coming from the other, and maybe they got killed and maybe they intermarried. You know, another sad tale of some race being exterminated by another. But they left these incredible standing stones. And on these standing stones are all these carvings of animals and birds and fish, and of their lives and symbols. And they're all a bit mystical. Nobody really knows what they mean. Some people say they do, but they don't. On my father's farm in the north of Scotland was one of the major standing stones, and it had on it all these many carvings. And so I kind of grew up with that history around me, the ancient history, very ancient stuff, which is kind of what, and I love that primitive art. It's sort of what I love about Aboriginal art. And when I've traveled in the southwest of America, the Anasazi and the Hopi art and all of that, it's that the primitive mark that I'm interested in. And I just, that, I don't know, it's something about that thread that comes from the ancients. And I want that presence in my work. So the dog that I'm making, I'm trying to make some big dogomals, clay dogomals now. And I found out that one of them bloody well got somebody's work exploded in the kiln and
Ugh.
knocked his nose off. I was very upset the other day. I still haven't seen that yet, but I'm trying to, kind of integrate them now, make some physical dogomals, more of them, but different ones with the Pictish marks on them, and have them appear in my paintings a lot as well. So that's a very long answer to your question, which about how do I integrate them both. The answer is it's taking a very long time and it's evolving slowly, but I am and I will, and that's my goal. So ceramics is becoming more intense as I kind of learn more about it, get better at it, understand more how I want it to be. And painting, well, painting's always intense. It's always quite emotional for me. So yeah, so there you are. I don't know if that answers the question at
No, that's
all.
awesome. That's awesome. It's good to see that you're working and you have this sort of goal between the two and you're interrelating to them. Of course, painting will be painting and ceramics will be ceramics, but you're sort of working in both of them within their own confines and within their own limits and boundaries, and you're using those two mediums, interplaying them off one another, and then that's actually
Yes.
developing the whole medium into something else, and that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's great, and I love how you're using your own background and mixing it into that, because then
Yeah.
obviously it makes it your own unique take on things, and
Yeah.
no one else can copy
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
What
Oh, they try.
what one group of your paintings that I really like. I'm not sure whether it's the one that you've mentioned before. It's a bunch of these surrealist paintings, and it has like this huge surrealist background, and then sort of just at the tiny part of the foreground at the front, like down in the bottom left corner or something like that, you'll see this little dog character,
Yeah.
and he'll be
These are the ones.
yeah, and he or she will be staring into
Yeah.
that background environment that is all. It's hard to describe it because it's
Yeah.
surrealist, but
Yeah.
that character, it's almost symbolic.
That
I
is
feel
exactly what I'm saying.
of someone,
Yeah.
of some
Yeah.
being or some spirit,
Yeah.
and uh, from your background in psychotherapy as well, we can relate to that. We can see ourselves or portray ourselves within those symbols within your artwork, and
Yeah.
it's awesome. I don't know how else to
Yeah. Oh,
describe
I'm
it
glad
except
you
that.
like it. I'm glad. Yeah. Well, the dog. That's what I mean. The dog in those paintings is the observer,
Mm,
and um, I think sometimes it's an aspect of me, but it's like I don't know. I've done a lot of meditation in my time. I don't know. People who meditate will get this. There's always that part of us, or even if you don't, but most artists will get this. There's that part of us that is the observer. It is not us. It's not my conscious mind going da, 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 all the time. It's sort of that the observer. We all have it, and that is the observer. The dog is kind of just observing whatever's happening, and so it's a sort of extension of perhaps myself, or a spiritual self. Really,
mm,
it's a that I think, but also definitely some kind of connection to my ancient origins. I did one which I just sold about a month ago, called I pulled a dingo in, and so the Pictish dog had a dingo friend. I think I called it Dingo and the Blue Princess, which was a bit fairy tale like, but that's just saying, oh yeah, like I'm a Scot in Australia, and I haven't forgotten my own ancient lineage at all, but I'm just nodding to the one that's here as well.
mm.
So
Well, you're playing
So
off of it.
maybe more
You're
paintings.
not
I'm
taking it literally. You're just playing off of
no,
it. So there's nothing to
exactly.
complain about there. Don't
Yeah,
worry.
good. Phew. Phew. So yeah, that's good. Mm.
Awesome, awesome. I was just thinking, since dogs play a strong feature in your artworks, uh, and you also know Kara quite well.
Oh yes.
Are you connected at all, or have entered into the wolf exhibition or competition?
I did once. And I painted, yeah, I had a painting in there once. I've banned myself from going into art prizes for the last 2 years, actually.
You're giving
um,
everyone else a chance.
yeah, well, oh, yeah, that's another whole subject. I don't love them. And I'm not very good at rejection, which probably means my ego's too big or something. It's not so much that. I just,
1 second, everyone. Just waiting for our connection to come back.
you've got to go into a lot.
Whoop. Oh, we've dropped our connection. That's unfortunate. Oh, there we go. Hello, welcome back. Susannah, your mic's off. You have to turn that back on.
Yeah, good. Sorry, I must have
Awesome.
hit that by accident.
That's all right. That's just a connection issue. That's no issues at all.
That's good. Yeah, art prizes. I will start entering them, but I know that their statistics are about 2 in 10, so you have to enter 10 to get hung in two. And I started getting a bit of resentment towards that because they're very expensive, and they take a lot of time and energy. And to just sort of, I felt like I was just might as well go and put my money in the lotto. And I'm not a very good gambler, so I sort of just thought, you know what, I'm not getting any joy from this. I don't think I'll do it. I really, if I don't get joy from something, I tend to just not do it. So, but maybe I have better luck with my pots. I don't know.
That's all right. That's all right. I just thought that there was a connection there. That's all. And it's not, different strokes for different
Yeah,
folks.
it is, and I will do it again. I will.
Awesome, awesome. So, what's happening these days? Like, have you got any new projects on the horizon?
Well, we just talked about the Pictish dog thing,
Yeah.
so I guess that's what I'm working on. I am in 2 shows in July, 2 group shows with my Potter friends, and they're pottery. One actually both with Cara, and one of them's at the Creative Space in Cull. There's a group of us who did a show together 2 years ago, and we're doing it again this year in July. So that'll be nice. I think there's about 8 or 9 of us. I can't quite remember. It's called It's Raining Pots, and that's in July, middle of July. I forget the exact date, something like the 12th to the 28th. And I'm in another show with Cara, and actually I believe that Chris James is in it, and Warren, who's our lovely Warren Hodgson, who's one of our lovely techie guys at TAFE. Quite a few people in Avalon in July. So I'm working towards those 2 shows, and they've both very kindly said that I can put a couple of paintings in as well, which is good because I often feel like if I'm just presenting one, the other needs a voice as well, because that's sort of me. and but they will be connected. The paintings will be connected to the work that I'm putting in
So
to
what's
the
the
show.
just to recap on that, what's the date and location on that again?
Well, oh gosh, now you've asked me because I hope the dates. It's the I'm just looking it up as we speak. So the Creative Space one they're both in July. They overlap, which is a bit, well, tricky, I suppose. Hang on a sec. So the sorry, yeah. Oh, the one at the Creative Space in Calcal, in North Calcal's fabulous gallery, is from Tuesday the 13th, and I think it runs to the following Sunday the 25th, that one. And the other one, I think, runs into August and in Avalon, and it's at a gallery space called Be Brave in Avalon. So I'll ping you the details when the invitations are done. But it should be good. You know, it's good to be in a show, and it's a great group of people, and some fantastic potters are in it. I'm quite honoured to be in it with them. Actually, some really superb artists. So yeah, Cara being one of them. So,
Oh, definitely. I can back that up.
yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. And I think Dana might be in one too.
Oh,
So
nice.
because I'm with you, I heard your interview with the lovely Dana the other day too. So yeah, she's there too. So yeah.
All right, we might start to wrap that up then because it's been about an hour. I'll
Yeah.
just let the audience know where they can contact you. For those
Yes.
listening, you can contact Susannah on a couple of different places. You can contact her and find her work on her Instagram, which is called Susannah Paterson Paints and Pots. It's fairly
With
easy to
Patterson
find.
with one T.
With one T.
Yes.
Also, you can find
Like
her on Facebook. You can just search Susannah Paterson with one T. Or you can find her on the, if you're having trouble with that, you can also do the facebook.com/Susannah.Paterson. So that's pretty easy to find. And you can also see her website, which is called susannahpaterson.com. And as we've also discussed, she's also on, what's the...
I'm on Blue Thumb, the Blue Thumb online gallery here in Australia, one of the biggest ones here in Australia. It's called it's bluethumb.com, and find me there, along with some other 6,000 other artists, I suppose. And I'm also with Art Lovers Australia, which is out of Brisbane. So that's another online gallery here in Australia. They're the two sort of big ones.
How do you find Blue Thumb? Is it primarily painters? Because I've never actually heard about it before, and when I was at uni, it was never talked about.
Right. Yeah. No. It's got huge. Look, they're great. It's a really great site. It's very easy to navigate, very easy to use. I do quite a few sales through them. But the downside for an artist is, well, two downsides. It's not curated, so you know your 3-year-old can put a painting up there. Not quite. Perhaps I'm exaggerating, but. So there's a lot of paintings to weed through, and so it's good to know what you're looking for. So you can, but from the artist's perspective, it's hard to get visibility. So it's like all these algorithms, you have to keep interacting with it. And they have started doing some sculpture there. I have talked to them about selling ceramics, but we've never quite got to the place of what happens if they break in postage, who pays for that, and how does it go. So, but they have actually, I do have some of my plates on Art Lovers, actually. They've taken some. So Art Lovers Australia, I have some of my plates there.
Awesome. Well, I hope Blue Thumb is able to develop more in the future, and it's a great future possibility or prospect that might develop more within a ceramics field.
Yes.
But it's definitely, it looks like it's something to keep an eye on, definitely.
Cool. Yeah. Good.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Susannah, and
Well,
we'll wrap it up
thank you,
there.
Sean.
And
I
I'll
wouldn't
see you
talk too
again down the
much.
track. Cheers. Good luck with your both your careers in both painting and ceramics, and I'll definitely be watching
Thank
you
you.
more and more on all your social media sites. Cheers.
Oh, thank you, Sean. Thank you so much. You take care.
You too. Bye.
Okay. Bye.